how do people really use merit as the device to actually reduce some people or push some people outside the framework of meritocracy, so to say. It's very interesting in our country that uh, the upper layers of the society in social hierarchy actually uses merit as the device to uh, arrogate to itself the advantage of merit as it is considered to be modern. And it does it by very subtle ways. For example, let's start with this, that if somebody from the privileged caste achieves some merit in terms of personal excellence and other successes, that individual merit is considered to be the merit of the society. So there is a collectivization of merit. If it is demerit on account of a upper caste person being blameworthy, then that demerit becomes individualized. So merit is collectivized and demerit is individualized. Is it, the same scenario is not applicable to the people who are not the part of the socially privileged section of the society. Individual merit is considered to be individual from among the Bahujan, but the demerit is actually collectivized. So that is the politics of using the binary between merit and demerit. So this, I don't know how the courts really look at this, but this happens all the time in our day-to-day social practices. Now, so this is one important way of actually using merit as the kind of monopoly of some people. And this monopoly has to be protected by condemning some people as demeritors. And reservation is one area where they use this notion of demerit to really protect their, preserve their merit. Now, we can debate whether really reservations really lead to some kind of inefficiency and other things. It has been the debate all along in our country that reservations are they do not contribute to merit, which is problematic, and we cannot accept it. We can debate this point during a discussion, because reservation is not basically, reservation is a general phenomena. It's a condition of development. I mean, we all progressed through reservations only, and the industrialists in the beginning really required some protection from the foreign capital. Their areas of productions and transaction were protected. So wasn't it meritorious, or was it against merit? So we can ask several questions. Uh, you require protection. You require some kind of protection for establishing equality, establishing social justice, establishing other social goods. So establishing social good actually is establishing meritorious society, and that is the thrust of normative thrust of Indian Constitution. Let us not forget that. So we can debate that point, and I don't want to really elaborate on that. We can always discuss that point. The point I'm making is that the merit really becomes some kind of device to actually decide the foundations of merit itself. I mean, and what are the foundations of merit? One of the foundations of merit is to actually take lead and initiative in deciding what is good for the society, what is universally excellent for a society. But the point is that the initiative to decide this foundation of merit lies with only the socially privileged, the oligarchy, those people who are the member of the social oligarchy. I'm using Mohan's expression. Now, so you are using merit as the device to really to take the initiative in your hands and deny initiative to others to decide the foundation of merit. Let me explain by citing two examples. Uh, One example is that you you have seen philosophers in this country, and I won't name them. There are 19th century and even 20th century philosophers said we are our philosophy theory should not be dependent on the Western theory. We should fight against Orientalism. Now, is there a merit in this demand? There is a merit in this demand, as much as science, it gives you the advantage of deciding or actually latching on, holding on to your epistemic intellectual freedom. Once you are free from the Western theoretical dictation or domination, you can devise your own theory. You can devise your own philosophy. To that extent, there is a merit in this demand. But the question is that do you also permit others to make the same demands like the OBCs and Dalits and Adivasi women? Should they not take the lead? Look, we also we want to raise two questions. One question, which is actually also meritorious question, that we have not been allowed to even study Sanskrit. We have not been allowed to even to study hard things, and so we have to depend on the Western scholarship, Western philosophy. So, so that question, when you are raising the merit question, that question you do not really answer. You actually bypass that question. Second question, there are people from among the Dalit Bahujans and Dalit and Bahujan, I would say, women and Adivasi, who can take intellectual lead to decide the theoretical agenda. Okay, but who takes the lead to decide what is good and what is bad for the society? It is only the members of.
We have a range problem for Professor Guru.
That our yes. Indian philosophy was all the time borrowing from the West, and we were actually stopping in the second. So stopping in the second is not meritorious. We always use the ideas that are actually outdated in the West, whether it is economics, philosophy, whatever. We actually pick up the ideas which are already outdated and thrown in the dustbin. So we take them up, and therefore this is not meritorious. But when there is no, if you are not allowing Dalits and the Bahujans to actually have access to all this good thinking, your argument for merit is vacuous.
Professor Gopal Guru, are you able to hear us?
Yes, sir. Please continue. Yes.
The point I was making was that the merit has no control on its own essence and usage. Actually, people are using merit to create the binary between meritorious and demeritorious. It happens in the US. It happens in our country. The privileged caste and white people do the same thing. I mentioned to you that taking initiative is meritorious. You are taking initiative because you want to do good for the country, for the society, for theory, for social sciences, humanities, and law, everything. So, but at the question is that what are you not denying the same advantage to all the OBC, Dalit, Adivasi women to really take the lead? They are actually silenced through different ways. And so you find that it's only it will be an interesting idea to find out who said what about intellectual autonomy, intellectual freedom, judicial activism, all that. Who has taken the lead is the question that one has to ask oneself. So those people are taking lead in giving some new orientation to all these disciplines are considered to be meritorious because they are contributing to the autonomy of thinking and epistemology. So this is one very subtle way of actually creating the binary using merit as a category.
Yes.
Okay. Second thing is that the expression, I am not from reservation. So I'm automatically meritorious. I don't really need to prove that I'm meritorious. So that kind of automatic advantage that one gets by this expression, that you don't have to offer any evidence of your being meritorious. It is already given, and you can enjoy the status of being meritorious. It has come through history, your social oligarchy, your prestige, your family, everything. So that endowment uh, is inherited. It is less, it is not an entitlement through which the merit has been accrued, but it is through these endowments that have been historically handed down to you through caste and through other things. So, this is one easy expression to really create the binary between meritorious and not meritorious. So that division one can see in terms of the Indian experience,
Yes.
the way it is unfolded, it is played out all these years. Now, the last point, I think I have spoken already about
No, that's okay, sir. Please.
21
please.
minutes. So,
No, we want
so
to
don't
hear
go
you.
that 2 minutes because the interruption was there. So,
We want to hear you as much as possible.
so the question is, yeah. So the question is, the question is that how to make merit as the democratic good. For that, I think we need to follow certain standards that are universally acceptable and validated. What are the standards? The standards are, you should be allowed to make uh, some advances in terms of suggesting new things for the society, new laws for the society. As Mohan, you were saying something very interesting in the public law and all that. They should be all these deprived caste, underprivileged caste should be given advantage to make suggestions that are universally valid and acceptable. Point one. As you know, as we had Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who actually gave that, who actually gives, who showed his acumen and statesmanship and scholarship and theoretical insights to really give a wonderful jurisprudence to this country. So we should be allowed to use our talent. We should be the conditionality should be provided so that you can actually flourish with merit. The question is whether these castes are in a position to uh, follow merit, because merit also merit also has a little problem in the sense that you can become uh, little arrogant. If once you are meritorious, you become little arrogant. So there should be some kind of ethics attached to merit. Merit should come necessarily with ethics, and that ethics of actually treating others as equally meritorious. So there should be some kind of mutual recognition that the moral merit is much more important than the technical, the statistical, the grade merit. What is the moral merit? That you actually have you have a disposition to think uh, in terms of the better of the others, in terms of the good of the others. You are not actually possessed by your own excellence, by your own success. And this is the ethical challenge to the Bahujan, so to say, because they have added historical responsibility to really keep this ethical challenge in mind. Then only uh, your merit claim can have some kind of a social significance. Otherwise, it will be devoid of any social significance, moral significance. So I think if you ask me, Mohan, what is the Bahujan, Adivasi, Dalit, and gender idea of merit, I think this is the normative challenge, that you are meritorious because you are thinking not only in terms of your own success, but in terms of the good of the others, through law, through social sciences, through policy making, through anything. And so you have to have an enlarged mentality, so to say, to see that having enlarged mentality is meritorious. Having capacious mentality is being meritorious. Having inclusive feeling emotions is being meritorious. Having a reason to take people along with you is meritorious. Reason has to be socially sensitive. It shouldn't be instrumental. It shouldn't be instrumental. It has to be socially sensitive, and it shouldn't be. If it is a cynical reason, the meritorious person can become cynical, condemning others being not meritorious. So being cynical also has a reason, but that is not the good reason we are talking about. We are talking about a good reason which will take others along with you. So merit, when thought in terms of the possessive individualism or individual success, it can actually recede into some kind of cynicism, some kind of paranoia, some kind of egoism. So we have to avoid all that, and merit, of course, then becomes purified. It has to go through all this yajna. What is the yajna? Yajna is something which you put your merit to your ethical, social, and moral taste. It should not leave merit unattended all the time, and this is the most important responsibility of those people who want to hang on to merit. Hanging on to merit is not bad. It is also good for everybody, but it has to be disabused from all these narrow contours of caste and narrow contours of social oligarchy or white oligarchy. I think I should stop here on this note, Mohan. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thanks.